Power Station at Berkeley, NYC presents part 2 of my interview with producer, songwriter, musician, and recording engineer, Will Wells. I know that recently you wound up doing everything that had to do with music at all for the Heisman Trophy. Can you talk about that?
I mean, it was a really incredible experience. We talked about there being original music because the Heisman deserves that. It deserves to have a sound, a theme that you can associate with the feeling of that night. And I started making some rough ideas, and it was similar to almost like the advertising world in the beginning, because you get a brief and you have these emotions that you need to check off in your work.
So what were the emotions they wanted to convey?
There's a few things, there's a segment, for example, every year in the show where they honor the players, the members of the fraternity that we've lost. And so we had to make sure that there was a moment that was appropriate for that in the music. So there's, in the second movement, I wrote this chorale that, had a feeling of reverence. And, we identified the key terms that go along with that and make sure that it translates to the music in the right way.
That's great.
And of course, there's the underdog kind of feeling, and the excitement of who's going to win, what's it going to be? There's a little bit of tension there. So we played with that. Yeah. And then, of course, there's the celebration. There's the victory, the glory. I get excited still thinking about it, but having to fit all of that into a suite of music was a really fun, to be honest. It was a really fun challenge. And more than anything, though, it's about doing things that you love with the people you really care about, for me.
Right.
And the fact that I was able to share that moment, the first time I actually had an experience where my name was on the marquee with the people that I care about. It wasn't just Will Wells' band, it was Will Wells and the whole team winning. Because that's really our philosophy. I started that company with Anthony Ramos, my business partner, best friend, and artist that I work with frequently, because that's really our, what we care about. We want to see the people that we came up with really succeed and win. And if there's any way we can contribute to that, that's the goal.
So, Will, you are always somebody I look to who is on the cutting edge of technology and new ways of working. What new tools and strategies and new ways of working are you excited about right now?
While we are in the midst of a global pandemic, I've had to figure out a lot of ways to keep things going. For me, it's really diving into the virtual world and the tools that we have at our disposal.
You're involved in 2 major label projects right now, right?
Yes. So there's Anthony Ramos' second album, which we've been working on, and Cynthia Erivo's first album. My number one goal was to make sure that nobody, artists, label, myself, had to worry about the fact that we can get this thing done.
Yeah.
So what that meant to me was making sure that the artists had the tools that they needed to record high quality studio level vocals. And when it came time to get down to business for the album, making sure that I had a way to effectively control their computers if I needed to.
Right. So just to be clear, so what you're wanting to do is when you're producing their vocals for the album, you're wanting to actually control their computer, so they're capturing audio locally, but you are actually engineering and producing the session remotely.
Exactly. So there are a few different ways I've actually done it. The most effective is there's an application called TeamViewer, and that's what a lot of major studios are using as well for remote sessions. And then to send high-level audio, I think everybody at this point has heard of Audio Movers and listened to, and I'm even exploring other options for that, and I've had to implement other options, be it high quality audio through Zoom and learning how to go on their website and at least enable stereo audio. Even in the sessions I've done in the last week, I've recorded bass guitar in California, electric guitar in California, electric guitar in Illinois, all over the place, drums even in Boston. That was the most surprising one, because I was like, there's no way this computer is going to hold up recording 9 channels and running Zoom. One of my most important lessons during this quarantine period, when recording Cynthia for the first time, for example, I got quite emotional when she was recording something. We were actually just doing a test recording. And I think the emotion came as a result of me feeling that thing I feel when we're in the room.
Yeah.
And what that made me realize is that the magic doesn't come from us being in the same physical space.
Interesting.
I think it comes from us being in the same heart space.
Ah,
and
interesting.
Because we were sharing that, I felt the same things I would have felt if we were sitting next to one another in the same room.
Wow.
And
Wow.
that gave me a lot of hope.
You know, since this is the Power Station podcast, we should probably talk about your time at the Power Station. So you used to have a room at the Power Station for how long was it, man? Talk just a little bit about that time you spent at the Power Station.
And it's funny because I didn't actually know that I was moving to New York.
Oh, I remember calling you to see if you could do this specific gig, thinking you'd be way too busy, and you said, "I'm in my car right now. Shall I go to the airport?" And that was
That's right.
Yeah, yes, you should. As a matter of fact, sure.
And I did. And it just so happened there was a vacancy, and I was actually in the market for a new studio. So it worked out perfectly. And we were there pretty much until we couldn't be anymore.
Until renovations
started. But that time there, man, let me tell you, there's nothing like having a creative space available to you like that in New York City. You know, we come to New York, people would come straight to the studio first, and we, you know, from having rehearsals there to having sessions to, you know, working with incredible people like Danielle Brooks on her EP there, and just having so many of these incredible moments happen. But as we all know, when you have a studio environment like that, it's really about the community. And these relationships you form, this bond and this trust that you build, it has been really important throughout my career and moving forward. So I'm always really grateful for that experience. And I'll never forget the summer of 2018 in the Power Station.
Good times.
Always having a good time. Joe, you know, and then going up to the executive level and hanging with one of my favorite mentors, man. It was really a dream.
That was so much fun to have you in the building, man. It was
just popping in.
A lot of fun. And popping in, yeah, absolutely. Well, Will Wells, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you on the Power Station podcast.
Oh man, the pleasure's all mine.
What parting thoughts do you have for us? What would you have to say to the artist community?
My advice to the artist community is, whatever you say, mean it. Make sure you're honest with yourself and honest with your listeners, and that way nobody has any regrets. Just tap into the magic. Trust yourself and allow yourself to form a relationship with your listeners. And I know that I still look back fondly on the days of listening to music when I was coming up, and there's a whole new generation that's listening to the things that you have to say. So there's a responsibility that comes with that, and there's also a lot of fun you can have with that. Create responsibly.
You can find out more about Will Wells at willwellsmusic.com or follow him on Twitter and Instagram.